She was a Hollywood legend, but behind the scenes, Lena Horne was struggling through constant racism, abusive relationships, and plenty of resentment. Lena Horne wasn't your average old Hollywood star. A trailblazer in every sense of the word, the singer and actor made a name for herself during a difficult time in Tinseltown history. Born on June 30, 1917 in Brooklyn, New York, she started her professional career at 16 and worked in the industry for over 60 years. From a very early age, Horne learned that she couldn't depend on her parents. Her father, Edwin Teddy Horne, was a banker and professional gambler, while her mother, Edna Scottron, was an actor. From the moment that Lena was born, it was clear that Teddy would become a transient figure in her life, as he was reportedly away gambling during her delivery so as to be able to pay the hospital bill. Lena's parents separated when she was 3 years old. As detailed in the biography Stormy Weather, Teddy Horne faked sickness to convince his wife that he had to travel west. Soon afterward, Edna also left, as her dreams of A-list success preceded her desire to be a mother. With both of her parents gone, Lena's grandparents took her in, and she remained with them until she was 15. Her grandmother, Cora Catherine Calhoun Horne, was a civil rights activist involved with the NAACP. Young Lena joined that organization when she was just 2 years old, with Cora taking her to an office to register.
My nomadic childhood taught me to hide my feelings. I would smile and try hard to fit in.
Lena Horne mainly lived with her grandparents until her grandmother died in 1932. By that point, her mother had remarried and was living in Cuba, so she was taken in by a family friend in Brooklyn, where she attended the girls' high school. During this time, she also took dancing lessons. By 1933, Edna Scottron finally returned, and the family settled down in Harlem after she took her daughter back. Money was tight during the Great Depression, so Scottron got the teenage Lena a job at the Cotton Club as a chorus girl. The white-run Harlem establishment banned black guests, and the pay was abysmal. Horne made a mere $25 a week, even though she performed 7 nights a week, 3 shows per night. The upper-class patrons weren't especially courteous to the performers, and as Horne recalled to the New York Times in 1981, the conditions were really terrible. We couldn't even use the toilets, which was for the customers.
They just want to make you work.
Edna Scottron put her lofty career goals above her parental duties. And after Lena Horne first tasted success, her mother became incensed. In 1940, Horne was really starting to make waves in the entertainment industry well after Scottron had given up on her own dreams. After Horne appeared in the 1938 musical film The Duke is Tops, her mother scheduled a meeting with her in Los Angeles. She asked her daughter to arrange phone calls with producers so that she could finally become a star. When Horne refused, Scottron threatened blackmail by bad-mouthing her to the press. As Horne recalled in her memoir, Lena, she eventually came up with a solution with the help of a lawyer, and her mother returned to Cuba. By the time Lena Horne was 19, she had met the man who would become her first husband, Louis Jones. As she recalled in her memoir, Lena, "I thought he was the nicest thing in the world." After dating for just 3 weeks, Jones proposed, but Horne's mother was furious. However, Horne realized that marriage would lessen the grip her mother had on her, and the wedding happened on January 6, 1937. Alas, the relationship suffered as Jones struggled to find stable work and became verbally abusive. Less than a month into their marriage, Horne became seriously regretful. Unfortunately, she was also pregnant, and leaving wasn't really an option. In 1940, she was finally breaking through with her singing career, and by 1944, she was able to divorce Jones. Lena Horne made her Broadway debut in 1934 after snagging a small role in Dance with Your Gods, but she paused her career after marrying Louis Jones in 1937. After they separated in 1940, she decided to give showbiz another try, as she joined the Charlie Burnett Orchestra, a predominantly white swing band. Alas, time on the road proved to be a struggle. After singing at various venues, Horne was forbidden to socialize with the audience and other band members. The hotels were also segregated, so Horne slept on the tour bus until Barnett told his manager that something had to change. As Barnett recalled, "Our band manager would go to the hotel desk, order the rooms, jabber to Lena in Spanish double talk. Then he'd tell the desk clerk our Cuban singer would like a single room and a bath." But this was merely a temporary solution, and Horne was sick of dealing with racism. After a few months, she left the band and returned to New York, where she landed a gig at the first racially integrated club in the city, Cafe Society downtown.
But I also like the fact that my young grandchildren don't think it was as bad as I thought it was.
In 1941, Lena Horne moved to Hollywood and began to rub elbows with the industry's finest. This included dating such big names as filmmaker Orson Welles and bandleader Artie Shaw. During this time, MGM studio head Louis B. Mayer was being pressured by organizations such as the NAACP to give black actors more varied film roles. NAACP Executive Secretary Walter White managed to get Horne a meeting with Mayer in 1942, which resulted in the offer of a 7-year contract. Horne took the deal, making her the first black performer to land such a contract with one of the big studios.
We've never had anybody like you in the movies.
Horne refused to play stereotypical roles, but that decision wasn't without controversy. Furthermore, her contract made fellow black stars irritated at the prospect of losing out on roles. As Horne herself recalled, "My signing this contract and their hearing that I would not do a certain kind of work got me into a lot of trouble with black actors. The very fact that I was one of the first, I was isolated right away because there was no niche for me." Lena Horne's long-term contract with MGM was undoubtedly a worthwhile achievement, but frustration and loneliness soon followed. Audiences began to wonder if she was white or black. When she filmed her first movie with MGM, 1942's Panama Hattie, the studio asked her to pass as Latin. According to Horne, "When my own people accused me of trying to pass, I was furious and I felt more isolated than ever." As detailed in the book Icons of Black America, MGM believed that Horne's skin tone should be darker on camera, so they hired a makeup artist to create a foundation called Light Egyptian so that she could match her co-stars. Several years later, Horne was vying for the lead role of Julie in the 1951 film Showboat. The character was described as having the same lighter skin tone as Horne, but she ultimately wasn't able to land the part. Instead, MGM chose her close friend, Ava Gardner, as they felt it was too risky to give a black woman the starring role. Ironically enough, they ended up putting dark makeup on Gardner that had been created for Horne. Horne's refusal to play stereotypical black roles was met with resistance from her studio. Throughout her time with MGM, she found work in various films, but the only two in which she actually had speaking roles were Cabin in the Sky and Stormy Weather, both released in 1943. For the most part, she was mainly cast as a singer. As Horne once quipped, "They hadn't made me a maid, but they hadn't made me into anything else either." This lack of meaty roles was due to the fact that MGM was trying not to offend audiences in the South. Horne was relegated to singing parts so that scenes could be cut before playing in certain theaters. Her most groundbreaking role was set to be in Cabin in the Sky, the first all-black musical since 1929. The film initially featured an infamous scene with Horne in a bubble bath, though it was eventually cut. When Horne realized that MGM would never offer her a leading role, she chose to focus instead on her nightclub singing career. She headlined shows in America and Europe, but she also continued to suffer through hardships. Part of that struggle was due to her reputation for leftist politics. In addition to her longtime association with the NAACP, Horne became friends with activists like Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois. She was suspected to be a communist sympathizer, and her name was published in the right-wing journal Red Channels. She was effectively blacklisted from Hollywood, and she couldn't make a film for 6 years.
And when Paul Robeson told me, "That's all right, your grandchildren will see it better," he didn't know I'd still have to wait.
At the time, many people associated all black Americans with communism. As Horne's daughter Gail Lamette Buckley wrote in her biography The Hornes, An American Family, her mother was fully aware that communism and the causes she advocated for were linked, but that wasn't a problem. In any case, Horne had to get off the communist list to maintain her career, so she wrote to a union and met with right-wing columnist George Sokolsky, who cleared her name. But she also stood her ground as she declared that while she would steer clear of communist organizations, that wouldn't stop her from speaking out about racial injustice. Lena Horne eventually found love again after her abusive first marriage. After signing her contract with MGM, she met Lenny Hayton, a composer at the studio. The pair crossed paths at various events, but it wasn't until Horne finished shooting 1943's Stormy Weather that sparks flew. As Horne wrote in her memoir, "I can hardly claim that ours was love at first sight." To avoid disturbing her children, Horne initially didn't bring her new flame home. Plus, Hayton was white, and interracial relationships weren't exactly widely embraced at the time. On top of all that, Horne was struggling with her mental health, and suddenly living in the public eye while going through a divorce and raising children was obviously challenging. Thankfully, though, Hayton stood by her and offered whatever support he could. 4 years later, a gleeful Horne accepted Hayton's proposal. However, due to state and federal laws prohibiting interracial marriage, they had to go abroad, and so they married in December 1947 at the City Hall in Paris, France. Alas, some members of Horne's family stopped speaking to her after hearing that she'd married a white man. Interestingly enough, Horne eventually revealed that she initially began dating Hayton to boost her career, though she grew to love him. As she told Ebony, "It turned out to be a perfect marriage." Lena Horne remained busy in the later years of her career, and in the 1960s, she also became even more active in the civil rights movement. But then she suffered 3 devastating blows in her personal life. In 1970, her father Edwin and her son, also named Edwin, both died. A year later, she lost her husband, Lenny Hayton, after nearly 25 years of marriage. Hayton died suddenly from a heart attack, while her son Edwin had developed kidney disease. As she later noted to Ebony, "At first, of course, I thought that this is it. This is the end of me. But the 3 had not left me helpless. Both my son and my father knew they were dying the last 4 years, and they'd prepared me by giving me their thinking. Their dying speeded up my training." After these losses, Horne retreated from the public eye, but just a few years later, in 1974, she starred on Broadway alongside Tony Bennett, and then in 1978, she starred as Glinda the Good Witch in the film adaptation of The Wiz. She returned to Broadway in 1981 to star in an autobiographical show, which won her a Tony. Ultimately, Horne came to believe that the loss of those 3 men in her life benefited her career. As she told Ebony, "Professionally, the pain really opened me up to my audience. From then on, I was one with my audience."
That it was important that I stay and be in the movies.
Horne lived to the age of 92, dying on May 9, 2010. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website.